Wade is guarding Bryant. Artest looking, gets it to Bryant. Bryant dribbling, has to put it up at the buzzer. Banks it in! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
Oh, and he's muted. Oh, y'all.
This guy said it perfect. It's time to win. It's winning on Wednesday. It's 9 a.m. We are live from Austin, Texas. We're here every single Wednesday. You can count on it.
Let's go.
What's happening? I hope y'all are doing great. It is a little rainy here in Austin,
I'm wearing my jersey.
Slow us down.
I'm wearing my jersey, and I walked out the door, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's like kind of cold." You guys know, hey, they're like, Joe's rocking the jersey. He must be going to a conference. So I'm pretty hyped. I'm going to a conference today here, following the podcast, the One City World Tour. So that is sponsored to you by the insurance guys as well as Glovebox. So if you guys are here in Austin, I'm sure it's not too late. I know they just kicked off, but feel free. You guys can go onecityworldtour.com. You can go buy tickets there. We had that's my weekly win. We had a welcome reception sponsored by Carruthers and Crew and GenCap. And it was an awesome welcome reception, to say the least, and just tons of networking. I mean, and literally it's kind of even what this group was all about was, hey, I took Tony with me. And I said, normally this is the other way around, where I'm like the only PNC guy in the room hanging out with a bunch of Life Health Medicare people. So
yes,
it was
undercover at the PNC conference yesterday, under the radar, trying to talk Medicare with some guys. That was fun. I had a good time.
That's good stuff. What's your weekly win? Is that
I
it,
would
or
say
you got
that
something
is
else?
my weekly win. I successfully infiltrated the PNC conference, but I made some good connections on the Medicare side. I mean, none of the guys there were really into Medicare, and they all had kind of the same complaint. At least some of the ones that I talked to were like, "Well, why would I want to do Medicare? It's a big pain in the ass. There's all these recording requirements. It's a federal rate." I was like, "You're not wrong." I was like, but there's a great way that you can actually get some Medicare dollars. You can get a piece of that market without having to do all that stuff. And I happen to know the secrets. So made a few good connections on that.
Right on.
We'll see how that rolls out.
I love it. Well, y'all, we have an amazing guest hopping on this morning, and Patrick is somebody who I've recently been able to connect with. How? Through social media, right? And so we were able to connect, and it started as a referral relationship. And then obviously we got to kind of spend a little bit more time with each other, and then recently just caught up. And he's rolling out, he's doing some amazing things in his agency, and I'm super excited to bring him on so you guys can hear how he built the agency, but then ultimately all the things that he's doing within to take his agency to the next level. So we'll get towards that towards the end of the call. But without further ado, give my good buddy Patrick Murakami from Main Street Insurance a nice warm welcome in the comments. Good morning, brother.
Morning, guys. How you doing?
Fantastic, man. Thank you for joining us.
Oh man, no, this is awesome. I don't think I've actually seen that intro in full completion. A lot of times I catch on after the notification and it's like the 30 seconds or whatever. I'm watching that thing and I'm like, this is perfect for Twitch.
Right. Hey, we'll get there, y'all, because this guy literally has built and well, I guess I don't know if you still are doing that, or that's literally, I know that's how you started and how you built it through Twitch, which is unlike, I've never heard anybody do that before. So I'm super excited to get there. Before we get there, 30,000 foot overview. Who is Patrick Murakami, man? Where do you come from? What all you up to?
Yeah, so I'm a native to Colorado Springs, Colorado. Been in the top 10 housing market for the last decade. And really, I didn't have an appreciation for small and local business until I became a business owner. Basically, I just tell people I went from unpurposed to unfinished. And so basically to make a short version of my story, I went through major depression, multiple suicide attempts, to now being a serial entrepreneur.
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, like, whoo, okay. And I love what you said. I went from unpurposed to unfinished, right?
Yes.
And that's, dude, you want to talk about, guys, Patrick's out here trying to win, baby. He's unfinished, right? But he's found the purpose now. I know that.
Yes.
And you're doing so many cool things. Let's kind of, before we get into insurance, let's talk about all the cool things that you're doing just for business owners and with your podcast and stuff like that outside of insurance. And then we'll kind of rope that into everything you're doing with your agency.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, growing up here, 80% of Colorado Springs is small and local. And I just kind of grew up around that. So I didn't think and know the difference because I was kind of in my bubble here. But the more that I travel, the more that I go, I realize, man, not everywhere is like here in Colorado Springs, where you may have a Walmart or Kroger or Target, but then you've got a small mom and pop shop, you got a flea market, all these things all around. And so what I started to realize when I launched this agency was that I know the landscape. I grew up here, but how many business owners don't really know maybe how to grow their business or where to grow or who to connect with.
Right.
And so I just started basically doing these live interviews with small and local business owners. I started connecting, trying to not only figure out what they were doing, but who could I connect them with? How could I help them? And that was always the conversation. Is I never left a coffee meeting without asking, how can I serve you? And that really opened up the floodgates for conversation. And I realized that the skill set that I had learned in the call centers for 15 years was so much easier to apply in real life because you can read body language, you can talk and connect with people, and they can respond real time, and that there wasn't an agenda at that point.
Right.
And so the discovery piece and this servant attitude of being able to connect really opened up the doors and the gateway for everything for me, my team, my wife in her business. And I think I mentioned that my 7-year-old also has an e-commerce business that we run as well.
Come on. Well, hold on. Call center though. What's call center? Take us there. Where's that?
Yeah. So I actually worked retail since I was 14 years old. Used to manage a video game store called Rhino Video Games. They got bought out by Blockbuster, and then eventually got bought out by
Take us back. Right.
So you talk about learning how to pivot, right? I'm 19 years old, running a store, which at 19 years old is kind of like the dream, right? Because I'm surrounded by. My thought was, hey, I'm surrounded by video games all day long. Turns out, really just doing inventory all day long. But what was cool is I learned so many skill sets. I got that opportunity to be able to be in management at a young age. And once we got bought out, opportunity to come and go work at Progressive. Now, I'd spent almost a full decade at Progressive, but my first boss / mentor, probably about 9 months in, she pulls me in and she says, "Why are you here?" And my response was, well, hey, I need to get paid, trying to make sure that I have, earn a living. And she's like, no. She goes, what is your purpose for being here? And I said, I really don't have an answer for you. And what I realize now is that she was basically trying to tell me, you have an entrepreneurial spirit and you don't belong here. But by being there, by learning all the skill sets, by piloting, being the first commercial hybrid agent, right? Being a part of that team. I also was able to introduce voice over IP into Progressive, so you got a top 500 Fortune 500 company that you're making changes with. And I didn't get credit for it, but I have the paperwork, the white paper presentation that I flew out to corporate to pitch to them. So there's all these different things. And, did a small stint of about 4 years at USAA before launching my own agency.
Okay. Wow, dude. I for some reason, I don't think I knew that on the Progressive side of things.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that though, because for me, and I was a hustler too, right? Now I wasn't doing like a video game store or anything, but I was running, I was making money, I was trying to be in that management. So I think a lot of us have that entrepreneurial spirit, and a lot of people that are tuned into this call that are really in this group. I mean, we're talking about disruption of the insurance industry, right? We got a lot of entrepreneurs up in here that insurance is just a vehicle, right, to really help you pursue the passions that you want, right? That entrepreneurial passion on whatever you're trying to do.
Right.
And nothing touches insurance when it comes to the vehicle, right?
Yes.
But I also think, and I'm sure you had this moment, whether it was at Progressive or whether it was at USAA, where it was boom, like right, all it took was one little thing. And like for me, I mean, I started in I was an intern, dude. I was scanning paperwork. I was not tapped into my entrepreneurial spirit, right? It was like it was a job. I needed money, right? And hey, I guess if I'm gonna do this summer internship thing, she offered me a job. I was like, well, whatever, I'll just stay, right? But it was that one moment. There was one moment. This was a couple agencies later for me, where it was like, oh wow, like I'd never seen an agency run like this. I'd never seen an agency spend 6 figures a month on inbound leads and doing $1 million a month over the phones with one company. And that was that light bulb moment of, wow, like maybe I do want to go pursue something else. Maybe I do want to pursue this independent side of things. And what was before I do want to get into the Twitch stuff and how you kind of built that. Do you remember that moment? Where was there just a time when you're sitting in that call center, probably on your time to bathroom break that they have, and you're like, oh shit, man, like I need to start my own agency. Like what was that moment?
Yeah, so we called that moment the awakening, right? And I think it was probably about 6 months where I had left USA. My wife had basically been a business owner at that point for about 6 years, so I got a chance to watch her build something from scratch, right? And remember watching her, hanging out with her while she's taking care of her clients, and in that moment, for that hour-long, appointment, 45 minutes, however long that she sits with them, she's their everything. So she's their nail tech, she's their sister, their daughter, mother-like figure, therapist, right? Just whatever it is. And the conversation just flows so natural, but they just pour into her because that's their time, right? And it's a quiet space, and it's a time where they can pull that out and feel like it's a safe spot, safe space. So I remember when she told me, hey, it's time for you to go find your thing because I'm tired of watching you have these up and down roller coaster days, right? I'd wake up and I'm listening to Les Brown. I'm listening to Tony Robbins, right? I'm finding guys that I've never heard of who are providing all these inspiration and motivation, which was good, right? Because I'm in a sales environment. I needed that. But when I left that, what I realized was not only myself as an agent there, but also the clients that I talked to every single day was just a number. I remember I worked a 16-hour day because the call center closed at 6 p.m. I was there till 11 p.m. on the phone with client. The lights had shut off on me. I'm working in the dark. One of the supervisors has to be there because I'm still on the phones. And all of that just for the conversation to say, well, I'll call you tomorrow. Well, you can't call me tomorrow. Whoever you talk to, and she's like, what do you mean I can't talk to you? Well, when you call, I just have to trust that whoever speaks with you is going to take care of you the same way that I did. And she's like, and I have to trust that? Yes. Right. And so I remember 6 months being removed from there. We're down in Mexico, watching the ocean kind of crash in, and the wind is blowing this way. Something hits me the complete opposite way in the head. And there wasn't like a rock or a pebble or anything. Just for some reason, literally something physically hit me. And it just heard a voice that just said, do what you know. Ooh. I literally thought everything but insurance up to that point. I was thinking eBay store, coffee shop, restaurant, bookstore, retail. Literally, I mean, if you had a concept, I thought about full-time streaming, right? There's so many different avenues that we looked at, but something that just flew the opposite direction of the wind said, focus on what you know. So I came back, launched the agency, had no idea how to get appointments, literally called every single company. And I think there's a point in time when the general, I called them, right? And I'm like, I don't want to write for the general, but I have to start somewhere. Right. And when the general says, hey, you need $1 million book of business to be able to write with us, I was like, wow, this is going to be much harder than what I thought.
Even the general's hitting you with $1 million. Right.
But yeah, I think it was a awakening in the fact that, you know what, if this is something that I want to overcome and really pursue, if this is something that I want to do, that's going to be a lot harder than what I anticipated. But I also told my wife, because I did an interview with a company called Oracle,
Okay.
tied into the computers and whatever. They offered me a job initially at 90K to do renewal sales, right?
Okay.
And still a call center environment, but they said, hey, you show up somewhere between 7 to 10 a.m., work your 8 hours. We'll have drink carts that come by all day long. We'll bring food to your office. So we make it as comfortable and as easy as possible for you.
Mm.
And my wife said, are you sure you can't do insurance on the side? Right? Because at that point, that was more money than I had ever been offered in my entire life.
Right.
And I told her, I said, you know what? I said, I think if they offered it to me once, they'll offer it to me again. But if I never take this opportunity for myself, I think I'll always regret it. And I said, give me 3 years and I will make more than what they offered me. And fast forward 3.5 years and we've almost doubled what they've offered.
Yeah. Come on, man. I freaking love that, dude. And I think it also goes back a lot of what you're saying too, and y'all, I hope you guys heard this, that the servanthood mentality in business in general, but specifically in insurance, and how Patrick is able to really, again, look at somebody, right, and approach them with that. How can I help you? What do you need help with? Right? Not necessarily forcing, hey, this is how I'm going to help you. I think there's a difference between that. I think a lot of insurance agents can become super pushy where this is how I'm going to help you. But if you really, it's a tweak of 1 or 2 words. If you switch, like, how can I help you? Right? What's going on with you? Right? And I think, well, let's kind of, I know that you're doing that within or you were, I'm not sure if you're still doing the Twitch thing or not. So you can tell us that. But how you had those open mics and those conversations, a lot of it was that servanthood mentality, because it wasn't, and I tell you guys, and everybody hears me say this all the time, but there's a reason that it's repetitive, because all the good ones do it is when you give, you get, and typically when you get, it's tenfold back, right? So I love everything that you're kind of, putting that all together. So then talk to us about freaking Twitch, man. I think people are like, yo, how the hell do you build an insurance agency on Twitch? And I tried doing, why I started the gaming syndicate, because it is an avenue that it's like, that is where so many views and subscriptions and people think like Twitch is just like a streaming thing. Dude, it's like full blown channels and group chats and conversations and like galore up in there. And so I was trying to do it at the gaming syndicate, and I'm like, everybody's talking about Discord channels, and I'm like, what the hell is that? Y'all do that. I play Call of Duty on the weekend sometimes. Like, so take us through that, dude. I want to hear kind of the ins and outs of that.
Absolutely. So I think to first give you an appreciation for Twitch, I think you have to understand where Twitch came from. And so you may remember an old website called Justin.tv. And that basically is what the platform that Twitch originally started from. And
Okay.
Justin.tv was, in its rawest form, was pretty much just IIRC, basically with live streaming, but people didn't have great quality. Wasn't really regulated. So basically, if you knew IIRC scripting, you could basically host a channel. One of the very first streamers on that platform was Bob Ross. And so
Really?
Bob Ross used to go from PBS Studio to basically live streaming on Justin.tv, and eventually turned it over to Twitch. So even to this day, Bob Ross still has one of the top followings and on his Twitch channel. And even though he's passed, people go and watch old episodes. They'll go and support his stream and his channel, because the story of Bob Ross is that he always was basically, he didn't make money off of selling his paints. He tried, but most of his money came from basically the Twitch channel. He didn't make a whole lot from PBS, but he constantly just wanted to be a beacon for people. And so he gave more than what he take, which is a huge mentality for my team and my agency. But for me, when I heard that story about Bob Ross, right, somebody that, was a legend in his own time, but more so became a bigger legend after he passed, to think that this guy literally spent his time around something that he was passionate about, which was art and basically being a beacon for people. And you find other ways to serve, maybe not necessarily directly, maybe people don't know how you can help them in the moment. So when I first started live streaming on Twitch, it was basically me and a couple of friends. We played competitive Madden, and it was basically just, hey, let's see if you buy a pack, let's see what cards you get, right? Let's see what, and it was just us kind of basically screwing around so we could live stream it and show each other what we had. Eventually, I started playing a little bit more gaming. I was really high in the competitive scene in probably 2016, 2000 through 2018 era. Basically was playing a lot of the live streamers live on stream. There was a guy who was top 5 on the PlayStation at that time, and I beat him and his stream shut down. And
yeah,
so,
right.
you know,
Lost the internet.
yeah, it brought up a lot of attention to my stream. So basically we were just live streaming Madden for about 6 months.
Okay.
But I really kind of I didn't necessarily care to game for other people. I mean, I don't mind doing it for myself, but you know, up to that point, I mean, I had played Street Fighter competitively for a number of years, you know, various other fighting games along with Madden. And, you know, but there was something, you know, that I always enjoyed about art, you know, so I got into the slam poetry scene, which is kind of like competitive poetry, with a lot of hip hop elements into that. And so I wanted to host a digital open mic. And it's weird when you first stream because you're talking to yourself and you have to practice as if you're speaking in front of an audience. Well, I was happened to be just reciting a poem that I had written. This guy comes in my chat and he's like, I thought you were doing an open mic from the way that your hands were gesturing. He's like, I'm a poet too. Well, he's not just a poet. This guy's a freaking 5-time world haiku champion poet. And he opened TwitchCon for 2 or 3 years in a row with slam poetry.
Wow.
Right. He also used to work for LucasArts. You know, he worked for a couple of other comic book companies, you know, so this guy's resume was crazy. But his intro to Twitch was because he saw Bob Ross live streaming. And so it kind of all comes full circle, right?
Bob
But
Ross.
he took me on really as kind of he mentored me not only with my writing and my poetry, but he also mentored me kind of in basically how to grow a channel, right?
Right.
His channel, you basically go and he draws and creates, and he'll ask new people. So he would ask you, Joe, what is, you know, your favorite animal? What's a characteristic that you like, and what's maybe your favorite element? So you might say like, oh, I'm a fire, fox, whatever, and he would actually draw that out for you in the stream. In the meantime, he's talking about, you know, progressive moments for artists. How do we increase? How do we make, you know, bring corporate world and art world together? So anyway, this was literally my intro to kind of get involved into kind of the art scene and the music scene on Twitch. And if you've never been, I think more so than the gaming, you're going to find some of the most amazing artists on Twitch. And a lot of those guys I still talk with today. But essentially, we transformed the gaming into a digital open mic. So it was inviting writers, musicians, crocheters, cosplayers, anything that you can think of that would be, even maybe if it was questionable as an art, right? We had comedians come. And it was just a safe space for artists to come and share or enjoy art, whether they were directly sharing themselves or they just came to listen. Met some incredible artists from there. We also hosted things like a compliment rap battle. You know, just things that you don't typically see. But the vibe was essentially is that like this is a safe space for you to share art. And so we had people who hadn't ever shared their stuff before. We had people who hadn't been writing every day for a decade and never felt comfortable to be able to share those things. But there's so many different elements and you just didn't know. And ultimately, I mean, I remember I was streaming on Christmas Eve and it was like 5 o'clock in the morning and I got rated with like 9,500 people.
Wow.
And I was getting ready to go to sleep because I'd already been streaming for like 7 hours. And how do you shut off a stream when you get 10,000 people? But essentially our open mic would range from that moment on, from anywhere between 25 to 2,000 people every Sunday night. And it was basically people just showing up to either want to share their art or be immersed in it.
Are you
Wow.
are you making money at that point? Is that a monetized thing, or is that just, hey, we got 10,000 cool people that just want to be part of this community and share and have fun? Or
Yeah,
is that
so
something where you're able to actually monetize that?
yeah, I was at the point where I was what they call I forget what is it. It's not partner, but there's another platform. So I think you got to get like so many statistics. I think it's 1,000 followers, so much like time, and then you can partner up with where they actually have you fill out a W-2 form, and then you split commission. So when people subscribe to your channel, you split that 50-50 with Amazon, and then you can also do donations. And so I think in the last 4 months that I streamed on Twitch, I had made about $12,000 in 4 months.
Wow.
So it was more money than I had ever made live streaming up to that point. But what I also realized is that I was taking so much time away from my family because I didn't have a set schedule for the streams. A lot of times, like, hey, I'm going to go live, and it was like, well, how long are you going to be? I'm like, I don't know. It depends on how it goes, right?
Depends, right?
So I look back on it now. If I had treated it more like a business, where if I had set times, my audience probably would have also been a little bit better of what to expect instead of being at things.
Right.
This live stream community is very different than kind of the real world because you have a lot of people do like these weird challenges. So like we did one where it's a 24-hour live stream and people will stay with you. I had one guy in England go to work, came back after work and stayed with me the rest of the time. I had other guys that, guys and gals that stayed the full 24 hours with me in chat. They were like, oh, let me go grab some coffee. I mean, we did community gaming, we did poetry. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
But the challenge, right, of can you withstand? We had people come in and saying, hey, this is not good for your health. I will actually pay you to stop your stream right now.
Right.
You're the community, once you build that, right, and then talk about the Discord, that is kind of like the most popular way for people to stay connected with you offline.
Yeah.
So even now, my Discord channel stays active. People still post art. People are in there sharing, and we have people that still ask, hey, can you come and stream even if it's once a month, once a week? We don't care whatever it is. We'll take whatever we can get. And this is almost 6 years after.
Wow. Yeah. Dude, I need to
So-
go find you. I need to go find you on Twitch. I want to watch some of your OG stuff. So then take us from, okay, so that, right? So you're getting to the point of where, hey, I've, at some point in times I've got to stream with freaking 10,000 people on this sucker. How do you take that and the things that you learned on Twitch and all that? How did you take that and migrate that obviously into your startup insurance agency? And now obviously with Main Street, I know, and we're going to kind of circle back, or we'll get to the training and all the stuff that you do within the agency. Are you still using any of that Twitch type stuff, that those relationships, that marketing, we'll call it, to drive people to the business? Or is that, hey, the business is up and running, we've got some other partners we're doing stuff with now, so the Twitch is kind of paused? Like what was that translation between the two?
I actually stopped streaming several years before launching the agency.
Okay.
And again, it was that work-life balance piece. Ultimately, I felt like there was a lot of pressure for me to be the positive guy for my community. And I look back on it now, I do have probably people in that community that I could have sat back and relied on. I probably could have let them in, but it's a weird thing to take on your shoulders when you're in front of this camera and you don't know how many people you're reaching. And then offline, people are reaching out to you with, hey, I'm going through depression. Hey, I've actually thinking about maybe committing suicide, right? And so as much as I wanted to be a resource and a beacon to these guys, I realized that I wasn't properly equipped, right? So I had to kind of start defaulting, say, hey, have you tried calling, the 800 number? Have you tried calling the text line? All these different things. And it got really heavy to be able to do some of those things offline. So I had to walk away from it, probably let a few people down, but also at the same time, they understood.
Right.
And so a lot of that community, a lot of those people were like, hey, if you ever write in Canada, call me, right? One is
Right.
like, we need to get you up here. A buddy of mine out in Virginia, when I first launched agency, I actually went with an online MGA but they were going to give me 8% commissions, and I still had to come up with like $1,800 a month or something like that to use their stuff. And I was like, there's no way anybody makes any money.
Right.
So shout out to Jason, because he did give me an opportunity to run some quotes from in Virginia. But when I was like, hey, I'm not going to go with them, so I don't think I can write your policies, he's like, well, if you ever do, let me know. So I think a lot of those relationships cultivated, right?
Right.
And a lot of them were like, hey, I actually know somebody here in Colorado. I know somebody that is in Texas. Can you write there? So a lot of those relationships still continue to flourish. A lot of people were there. Heck, they didn't even live in Colorado, and they're like sharing it on their Facebook page. Hey, my buddy's launched an insurance agency. If you're in Colorado, give him a call.
Right.
And so a lot of that basically just realizing that because we built a platform, and just because I happen to be the face of that platform, everybody was involved. It was a tribe, right? And so
Yes.
because we built that tribe, when it didn't matter if I went from Twitch or if I went to Instagram or if I went to Facebook, they showed up. I was like, hey, maybe I'll start doing some lives on Instagram. My first live, I showed up like 50 people from my Twitch community showed up on my Instagram, and we're like, hey, are you live streaming here on Instagram now? Because we're here for it, right? What are you going to be doing? And I'm like, I literally just wanted to go live just to test this out.
Right.
But I think learning all those things, right? Building it on the back end, having those offline conversations, and realizing that it was so much more than the channel itself. Yeah, maybe I was the creative behind it to kind of launch it, but I had so many people turn around and say, you know what, we tried to do what you did. We tried to replicate, we tried to create this open mic, but it's you that basically makes that feeling where it's okay for us to show up. Nobody's been able to replicate it. So can you come co-host it with us, right? I mean, there's so many different variations that they wanted us to bring it back. But ultimately, at that point, I was focused on this. And again, going back to watching my wife and how she took care of people, watching and hearing those stories of Bob Ross and watching these other streamers, a lot of it was, why do people spend time watching somebody else doing something? A lot of times it's cringe. A lot of times it's entertainment. But what brings people back? And that's, what are they getting out of it?
Right.
And so I extracted and really focused on that. My first 5 to 6 months was literally scripts, phone calls, talking to people, right? Using the same memes that people do when they first get into insurance. I think one of the very first ones is everybody uses Steve Urkel, right? And
Right.
It says, oh, you still
If
have the
he's
same
still in your
insurance
TV.
from when I was on TV, right?
Right.
Because
Or the one where the truck's in the pond and it's like, I hit a fish or
yes,
something.
yes. But it's like everybody tends to navigate towards the same ones. And like, I just kind of know when people are starting fresh, right? Even for myself, like as soon as someone starts doing lives who's not traditionally doing them pretty often, you're like, oh, what are you selling? Sure enough, it's probably some sort of MLM, right? So, what I realized is, hey, I didn't launch this agency just to be able to get clients.
Right.
I launched it because I wanted to have the time freedom to work on my terms. I wanted the ability to be able to say, you know what, I built this my way. So taking a lot of those elements to be able to then just say, you know what, I need to stop just trying to sell, because even asking the simplest questions or answering the simplest questions was a conversation killer. I remember I had somebody reach out to me to say, hey, how's it going? And I hadn't talked to this person for years, so I thought maybe they were reaching out for insurance. And I literally just having a conversation. How's the business going? And I'm like, oh, this is a buying sign. Let's go, right? So sitting there, I'm like, hey, business is actually really well. I'm surprised that I'm this busy this early. Are you, can I help you with a quote? Ended the conversation.
Boom.
Right? And I'm like,
stream ended.
yeah. And I'm like, you asked me, but what I realized is they just wanted the same basic answer. Oh, things are fine. How are you? Right. So at that moment, I scrapped all of my scripts. I deleted all the ones that the carriers offered. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go have conversations. I'm going to go find reasons to connect. So I use an acronym called HARC, have a reason to connect. And that basically forced me to go out of my comfort zone. That forced me to stop talking about my business online for a while, which is kind of weird, right? Because you post about business and you get crickets. But then when you start getting traction, to turn around and say, I'm going to stop doing that. And it was basically, I'm just going to share my journey, the
Right.
wins, the fails, the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm going to post about my journey so people can literally understand and watch me go from unfinished, unpurposed to
Right.
unfinished, right? So
Right.
to be able to showcase that. And I think that opened up a lot of opportunities because it was now a transparent lifestyle with how I got here. It was also a transparent, and again, it's not easy to live a transparent lifestyle to be able to show people, because social media teaches us to showcase the best things and only the good things. But
It's good.
how hard is it to go in there and say, hey guys, I did not have a great month. This is not where I expected or where I wanted to be, right?
Right.
But I'm going to be thankful anyway,
Yep.
because every morning I get an opportunity to connect with people. I get an opportunity to serve people in this insurance. And so the running joke in insurance is if you want to see your agent go to work, it's at what? New business, cancellation. Where's the in between?
Right. Right. Well, let's sit here then, because you said this word and I wanted to make sure we came back to it, because you shifted your focus, right? You pivoted and you shifted that focus to, again, obviously serving and helping clients, but now obviously you've got a team. And so I want to talk about some of the things, because I think it's y'all's values and kind of we'll call them your core pillars there within your agency. Is they're freaking amazing, and honestly, it's a true testament, I think, as to why you're successful and why you've got all these cool things on your horizon, is because of what you guys stand by and believe in, and how you just treat each other, but then treat the clients, right? It all starts in house, right? It starts with that culture with your people, and that will 100% translate to how they communicate and freaking treat other people, right? Specifically, especially your clients. So talk about some of those things that you focus in, even like the acronym you just said, like have a reason to connect, and what are some things that you're doing with your team? And then I kind of want to shift from there to, because guys, he's getting 90% of his agency business clients, everything all digital, mostly through Facebook. So he's doing a lot of cool things on that side of things, but in order to facilitate all of that, and I know this, right, is I start going and getting in all of these damn Facebook groups, and it's like, oh shoot, the admin of the trucking group of 60,000 people said work with Joe. It's like, dude, I got like 50 trucking requests coming in at 9 p.m. You need a team to help with that, right? And you need a team to be able to do it right. And you talk about the transparency piece. If I go out there, right, and this Prince dude tags me in this group, pins me to the top, and I screw everybody over, guess what, dude?
Yep.
That will come out on Facebook, right? And it'll be do not use this guy. But I definitely want to spend some time on the team, because I think you guys have some really cool things that you're doing, how you guys treat each other, even just some of the things you're doing together to keep that culture really intact. So what are some of those things?
Yeah, honestly, my mentality is that I'm responsible for these individuals for however long they're going to be with me. Now, they are 1099, just like myself. I have them literally on the same schedule that I'm on. But what I'm doing is I'm teaching them that should they decide one day they want to run their own agency, they already understand the pay schedule. They understand the structure. The only things that maybe they're missing is running payroll, right? Issuing out the commissions and dealing with kind of maybe the back end with applications, all those things. But those are everything that we do in our agency is a learned skill set, right? You can learn the terminology, you can learn the products, you can learn how to sell, you can learn how to have conversation, you can learn how to influence people. But at the end of the day, there's only one thing that you can't fix, and that's with anybody, with your clients internally, externally, your relationships, and that's how does somebody feel when they walk away from you. And so I have my team cognizant and aware of that every single time that they pick up that phone, because yes, my name is on the agency, but these guys are the ones that are focusing on a lot of the day-to-day. I am in the trenches with them, so I quote just as much as they do. So I frontline with them, right? But that also allows us to have discovery, that allows us to come up with solutions together, that allows us to dialogue everything out. And so their frustrations are my frustrations, right? But that also allows me to have a better understanding of what they're going through. What are you experiencing, right? I've had several carriers where the home insurance in the last couple of months has all of a sudden skyrocketed. Hey, you know what? This is a pain point for me too. So now that I understand it, I know how to find maybe possible solutions, or, can we switch coverages or temporarily, right? Can we come up with creative solutions? So being able to sit there with the team, but also be invested into each individual to say, what do you want to do long term, right? So I've got a girl right now. She's been with me the longest. She just did all the pre-work to become a lender, but she's like, part of the reason I want to be a lender is so that way I can fix the things that are happening that we're seeing with our lenders versus the insurance relationship.
Right.
She goes, so if I can better educate, it's going to be a lot smoother, right? But there's opportunity also to make a decent amount of money in those. She's got friends who are realtors already. So, there's a lot of different opportunities, but it's encouraging those. I've got another agent where he wants to be around content creation all day long, right? We also have a coaching business. But his copyright, he's been studying and working on this for 6 to 8 months, and he's applied it to our agency. And I basically said, here's your guinea pig. And I think we just posted stats the other day, but we basically doubled the amount of leads that we have incoming. Our quote opportunities from online groups of people actually calling us now has increased by about 60%. And that's basically from him taking something that he likes and basically giving him the opportunity to be able to utilize that in a setting where why not test it? Why not see where it works? And just open to the idea of saying, like, you know what? We can build something online. We can create content that is evergreen. And so what does that look like if you go and spend all these marketing dollars on a flyer, on something that somebody may just throw away, somebody may not see it, whereas you can create the content online. People will at some point come across it, whether it's on Google, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on a Facebook group, your own personal page, your timeline, your story, whatever. And it takes you can literally create that in 30 seconds, post it up there, and it's going to stay. And so people who are not embracing this digital world, and again, it's hard to adapt to change, right? Especially for an industry that has been going on for, I mean, really, if you go back to ancient Chinese merchants, in 300 AD, I mean, it's crazy, right? So a lot of people don't realize that the idea of insurance came from these Chinese merchants who were loading everything on a boat. And instead of basically putting all your eggs in one basket, if that got pirated, if the ship got lost or whatever, you'd be out of business. So what these guys started doing is started putting a bunch of stuff on a bunch of different boats. So that way, if you lost one boat, you didn't lose inventory. So the idea of basically getting you back to whole, making sure that you split everything evenly, came from back then. But I feel like that with my agency. If my agents aren't going to be happy, they're not going to sell. They're not going to be motivated, right? With that being said, I also am responsible for bringing in a lot of the leads because I am the face of the agency.
Yep.
Now I tell my team, like, if you're relying on me only, you're not going to get the money that you want. But in this industry, where else, really in any industry, where else can you get a pay raise every 6 months or every year?
Right.
And,
Damn straight.
I think the only people who don't miss passive income are those who've never had it. If you're a new agent, there's plenty of business to go around, but you can leverage being new to your advantage, because so many people think that they're behind when really they probably haven't spoken to their agent in many years, because most agents work for that new business and then they coast.
Right.
So you can go in there and have a conversation. And again, things have maybe changed. Maybe maybe they haven't talked to their agent in years. Use that to your advantage because you're hungry. You want that relationship. And if you can cultivate that, you can find opportunity.
Real quick, sorry, Tony, real quick, and then I'll let you go, because Ryan had this quick question. Because you're saying a new agent, right? And so Ryan is a good friend, longtime captive agent, just started his scratch independent agency like on January 1.
Okay.
So he's asking, hey, are you cool with sharing how your team is set up? How many, all sales, who is doing back end service?
Absolutely. So the way that the agency is set up is it does have a service team. And now this was all created before I became an agency owner. With a growing number of agents. I think when I came on, there was 18. I think there's 26 now.
Okay.
And so that servicing team just continues to get bogged down. So for me, I really utilize the servicing team just for background. Hey, if this is something that doesn't have to be done immediately, billing change, processing change, I can send it to them. They'll get that done.
Got it.
What
So
I also do,
Main Street has their own
yes,
in-house. Okay, got it.
correct. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
But what I felt was important is because the way that I utilized them, I felt it was important for us to have a consistent voice within our own agency. So I took one of our agents and I made him a hybrid. So he worked for with our servicing team for a while, so he understands their process, but he also understands kind of my quirks, my team, and how we operate. So now I can delegate servicing to him, allow him to decide if it needs to go to servicing or if he can take care of it.
I like
But
that.
also, if there are additional situations that arise, because he understands all the carriers, he can turn around an issue and also still earn commissions. So it allows us to have that hybrid in-house that understands us as agents, but has the ability to go ahead and write and still kind of earn the best of both worlds because he
Freaking
gets a
love
little
it.
bit of hourly, but now he has that unlimited commission as well.
Yep. Dude, I literally say that all the time. I attest all of my sales success, we'll call it, right? All of that, I feel like it came from my time in service, because a lot of people don't know that I spent almost my first 2 years of insurance in service, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, and I attest so much of that sales success to it because anybody can sell the policy, right? The sales and the script and all that. I mean, we all know that, right? We can all do that.
Sure.
But what happens after you push that button was the
Right.
biggest piece, right? So you say like, hey man, this guy knows everything about what happens after you push the button, and he's equipped to be able to push the button up front. And hey, guess what? If you do it this way up front, then you can remove all the freaking back end BS that'll come through because he's seen in both sides of that.
Yes.
I love that, dude. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and what's really cool too is he's encouraged to have more touch points, right? So every month we run a cross-sell list. Hey, reach out to these clients because now you can touch base, check in it's a touch point for us to check in, but it's also, hey, we're only servicing your auto. Did you want us to take a look at a home, right? Did you want to look at a home warranty? And he's actually our life insurance agent in-house too. So now he can turn around and say, hey,
That dude's a hybrid.
Yeah.
He's a hybrid.
Yeah. But it gives him every opportunity to maximize potential, right?
Right.
Because if I were to turn around and say, well, hey, that's my client, let me talk to them. And again, I have a handful of clients that said, you know what? I'm moving over because I want to work with you and you only. Cool. I'll respect that. But a lot of times it's, hey, this is an extension of me because you know that I am growing a business. I'm growing an agency. And most people understand that. But they're, again, a lot of the high-end clients, they've earned the right to turn around and say, I'm working with you. Don't send me to your team. I respect that. If our relationship is based off this because we've met and we've connected and we work together, I'm fine with that. But more often than not, most of the people are understanding that I am growing a team, that they're going to work with my team as well. And that, again, they're an extension of you. So you're responsible for what happens in those conversations as well.
Right. What'd you have earlier, Tony?
Well, he was talking about content creation, right? In the digital world, we all have to get out there and create content, and we have to embrace the digital content creation world. I'm kind of curious because I've been in this business a long time, right? I'm 48 years old. I'm the old guy that's having to learn this stuff, right? I came from when the very first carriers were starting to let us fax applications to them.
Sure.
But I was curious what your thought is on ChatGPT. Are you using any AI to create content? Do you think agents should? Kind of what's your thought process on that if you wanted to unravel a little bit?
So I did invest into a blog writer a couple years ago. I've used it twice. Now, again, to say that I won't revisit it at some point, because having a blog, I mean, I can tell you a whole list of things that I'm missing. And this is really going to be the part that kind of, I think, of where people really don't understand maybe the power of social media or how I've been able to leverage it. So I don't know if you know a website called dib.com, DIIB.com. Okay. So they are social media management, SEO, right? You can go on there and you can do a ranking score. My rank out of 100, and again, it's impossible to get to 100. Even Google has like a 92 or 94 or something like that. But just to show you how low my score is for my website, is a 38 out of 100. I don't have a lot of the basic necessities that should be on there at this point in time. Okay. So when I tell you that we're generating 25 to 30 leads every 2 weeks from Facebook, we're not doing anything that is super dynamic, but we are consistent. A lot of the the content that I created was challenging people's everyday knowledge of insurance. So anybody here in the chat, you've probably heard this. Maybe you've said this yourself. Oh, why did the rates increase? Right? And most people say, oh, well, Safeco had a rate increase in Colorado. Technically, yes. But if you go further to realize to say, well, hey, insurance companies actually dictate rates. They have to present it to the insurance commissioner. Commissioner can approve or deny. Now that changes the conversation because people are like, well, why would they have to do that? Well, if you know Progressive's model, their goal is to make 13 cents on every dollar. If they're not making that, what do you think they're going to do to increase that? And what do you think is taking away from that? That covers the claims, that covers, the marketing, advertising, like whatever, all those different things that come in. So when you have a deeper conversation to understand the why behind the why, people will gravitate toward that because they're learning. And if they're learning from you in 30 seconds about that, what do you think you're going to do to educate them in regards to their policies, right? First thing I tell my clients all the time, my goal is not to be the cheapest price. My goal as an agent is to make sure that I'm protecting your assets first and foremost. You've worked your ass off to be able to have these things. And do you think that you should even consider working with me if I'm willing to let you slip on that to save a couple of bucks? I promise you.
Right.
You do not care.
You're either going to pay now or you're going to pay a lot more later when you don't have it. Right.
Yep. So, my team, we use this concept that we basically say cheap, fast, and good. You can get 2 of the 3. And I guarantee you, when you tell people that, which 2 are they going to choose?
Right.
Fast and good. Right. Very few people will say cheap when they understand what that cost is. But when you leverage different concepts, right? But at the end of the day, we use the golden rule. Is that something that we would attract to ourselves? Is that content that we would bother looking at? And then is it also the content, does it resonate as with you as a consumer? Because I know I have to carry insurance. So am I going to put out crappy content that everyone else uses and says and does? Or am I going to create content that I put my foot behind? And again, we know laughter helps retain stuff. So, I may have put a piece out there when the royal family had started to discuss, separate. And I basically said, if you're moving out of your parents' house, you need renter's insurance, give me a call. Right. But that's kind of the online community, right? Memes, pop culture, so it's staying relevant. It's also giving your agency sense of humor. It's giving a personality to it. And for most people, they just assume, hey, I put out content, I'll put out an ad, people will see it and they'll like it. Not true at all. And I can tell you because I've only spent about $250 total for marketing. And most of that was testing Facebook ads. Finding out that for me, it wasn't, at least back then, it wasn't an avenue I could travel down because I didn't have hundreds or thousands of dollars to put into a marketing campaign. What I did have was access to social media. I had access to different groups. I had access to learn the algorithm, which is constantly changing. I think last year there were 75 agents that I taught this little secret to. I think it's changed a little bit, so it's not as effective as it used to be. But if you shoot somebody a direct message and then they respond back, your activity and their activity now shows up in each other's feeds. I think Tony stuff is starting to show up a little bit more in my feed now because we exchanged a couple of DMs here. But when you know that, how powerful can that be, especially if you connect after maybe a networking meeting, you have a one-on-one.
It's different than just adding a friend, right? 100%.
Yeah, because Facebook thinks you're best friends when you guys exchange DMs. So you turn around and say, hey, it was so great to meet you. And again, no sales pitch, right? I just really appreciated, you being kind to a stranger, whatever it was. Happy birthday. Find a reason to connect, right?
Right.
Then they respond, hey, thank you so much. And you go one step further. What did you do to celebrate? I'm looking forward to seeing more about what you're about, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden, when you see that their stuff showing up on your timeline, it also means that your stuff is showing up on the timeline. Bam, you hit them with an insurance post, and all of a sudden, it's not that I'm directing content and I'm not being a salesman to people, but the awareness is there. So now I have free reign to be able to post, and I know that people will see it. So if you do that 5 to 6 times a week, right? You do it five times a day. And again, a simple birthday message. All of a sudden, now you're in their activity. And so people are like, man, I see your stuff all the time. Well, DMs, baby.
Yeah, the DMs, baby.
Slide
And
into those DMs in a non-creepy way.
and Ryan, you're asking for the 250. Yeah, so Patrick's all organic. So he's very in alignment kind of with how I work groups and how we're kind of leveraging the algorithm on that. So again, yeah, the 250 was him just playing with Facebook ads, but then like, screw that, I'm going organic.
Yeah.
Real quick, Patrick, I want to give you just a couple minutes. I know we're kind of coming up on our time here. I wanted to give you a couple minutes to just talk about what's coming. I know obviously you've got some really cool things in the pipeline as far as coaching and training. And then obviously, guys, Patrick is actually going to be joining us on I believe, multi-episode series with Tony here in the next few, 2 months or so for Tuesday training. So you're definitely going to be seeing more of them. This was kind of just his, hey, here's who I am. Here's kind of what I'm building. But the Tuesday trainings are going to be really specific to what. Just take a couple minutes, maybe, Patrick, to talk about what you're rolling out there.
Yeah. I think, again, I'm a firm believer in giving more than what you take. And so I am always going to give time to somebody who's willing to improve themselves. And so that's a philosophy that I live by. It doesn't matter where somebody's at in the scale. It doesn't matter if they're, high income earning or if they're, trying to just improve their process. Yesterday on my timeline, I posted that I'm going to give away 10 free sessions for people who want to take advantage of either outgrowing themselves, bettering their income, deciding if a side hustle maybe is the right option for them. I think that was such a big push from COVID that so many people think that they have to have a side hustle. Mm-hmm. And again, multiple streams of income, I think, are necessary at this point. But I'm also a firm believer that sometimes if you do a little bit more on what your main hustle is, that you might not need the side hustle, but right. Deciphering that, right? Because it depends on, where you're at, how you feel about the situation. Maybe you're trying to go to make that side hustle maybe your main hustle, and how you do that. So, I offer these consultations all day long free, because if I had that in that time of need, how much further would I have been with my mindset? And so I think that, when we can give back that same process, you just don't know who you're inspiring. But my goal, my objective, and I was once told that I'm too small to be able to disrupt this industry. But my whole thing and my whole crusade for being an insurance agent is that people deserve better. Your clients deserve better. It is a blessing to be able to get to serve them. Right. And I think if we change the mentality around what we do, right? I understand your agency blowing up. I understand, there's so much time in a day, but people trust you. And if you work for them, which technically if they're paying you, you do, then go to work, right. Answer your phone, right? Respond to the email,
up your phone.
To the text message. Like,
some of y'all listening to this, I'm talking to you. Some of y'all ain't listening to this either.
you're literally getting paid for somebody's trust.
Right.
So, I tell my clients all the time, you can call the 800 number. That doesn't replace me. So don't be afraid to put me to work, because I technically work for you. And when people understand and have that trust, man, they want their moms, they want their cousins, they want their sisters, they want their daughters. They want everybody to come to you because they trust you. And so wherever you're at in the process of an agent, if you're trying to go next level with automation, if you're trying to scale to a national group, if you're trying to just put out the fires in-house. There are plenty of people who are making way more than I am. I'm at a comfortable spot. We're bringing about 30 to 60 leads a month. I'm comfortable with that because our team is growing, but they're also, some of us are learning. And so, we're going to scale that at some point. But again, I have the time now. And so I want to be in that mentor role. I want to help agents who are like-minded, who have that servant mentality. I think it's now this time for service agents to be able to thrive. And
right.
if I can combine that mentality and just learn a couple of sales skills, you'll be unstoppable.
Yep. Dude, and service is so big right now. I mean, and I know you're in Colorado, I'm in Texas. And I know there's some people in some others. I mean, if you're in California, I pray for you every morning when I wake up.
Right.
Because that too. Florida too. Right. And so I love that you said that, dude. And again, guys, Patrick's going to be kind of rolling this out in Tuesday training. Obviously, you guys can reach out before you see that. Feel free to reach out to Patrick. Patrick, maybe real quick before we wrap up, what's a good way to reach out to you? Obviously, slide into his DMs, guys. If you're listening to anything, slide into his DMs and you'll get on the timeline.
Yeah. So, I mean, Facebook is my biggest platform. It's where, like I said, about 90% of our leads come in. We average probably about 15 leads a week just from Facebook groups. So that's the easiest way to connect. You can always give me a call as well. So 719-309-6439. If I'm not available, Ashley is. And so, but my phone intentionally rings to her just in case I'm not. So that way we pick up the phone whenever people call.
Like it, dude.
So thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Really grateful. Obviously, I can't leave without asking you, Joe or Tony, what can I do to better serve you guys today?
Come on. I love it, dude. Shoot, you just did it. You did. You should, if you had led with that, then it would have been perfect because hey, you just freaking gave us some gold, man. No, here's what I'll get you up on YouTube and then share the YouTube link. That's what I'll ask.
I got you. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. And again, it's a open door. So if you can think of something later down the road, feel free to just reach out.
Love it, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
You bring it. Oh, you got. Oh, did you? Oh, he's. I was like, Tony typically does our closing. Right on, y'all. Hey, well, it's Wednesday, right? It is the peak of the week. Get out there, get into some DMs, but don't be too salesy. Care about your team, cultivate some culture, right? And let's get out there and win. Love y'all. Hope everybody has an amazing rest of your Wednesday, and we'll see y'all tomorrow for Tactical Thursday. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, Tony. Later, y'all.